Greetings, America. Welcome to yet another Charles Jackson TV show. We're going to get right into it today. No monologue, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. There's so much nonsense and going on in the world today that we just got to start talking about. I've got some guests, friends of mine, some people that you need to meet. First of all, to my immediate far right, Lamar Webster. Lamar Webster, been knowing this guy for years and years and years. He's a musician. I guess he does some other things too. Just what you got to say, young fella?
Thanks for having me on the show, buddy.
Next to him, a young man I just met. He's an educator, Mr. Richard Lawrence.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I understand that you are a walking database.
I know a few things.
He knows a few things.
It's all about association.
Friend of mine, humorist, Mr. Scott Holm.
Hello. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. We work together, actually. All right. Somebody just sent me this email, how timely it arrived. I'm not going to read the whole thing because, as usual, it's too long. But basically, what they're talking, they want us to send emails to our congressmen and let our congressmen know that we want them to jump into the same Social Security pool that we're in, or let us jump into the one that they're in, because they don't have Social Security. Basically, they just get their same pension that they're getting. They get their whole salary when they retire. They just keep making the same money. While we, I guess, get what, about $1,000 a month, if anything.
Something like that.
Depends on what you put into it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm just. What do you think about this whole Social Security thing that's going on anyway? I mean, the president is trying to sell us something, and I'm not sure what he's trying to sell us.
Well, they keep telling us that they're trying to make it more solvent, that they're trying to fix it, but really what they want to do is get rid of it. They would love to privatize Social Security just as much as they would love to privatize everything. I think when that scared people, and so they said, well, we're trying to fix the system. But by fixing it, what they propose will actually help it collapse faster. They're actually proposing taking money away from it, which will then, of course, much like the voucher system, it's the same thing with the voucher system. It will actually take money away from the whole system, causing it to collapse faster.
Well, they keep, I guess what he keeps selling, and you guys can jump in at any time, this ownership society. We're trying to have, what's wrong with having an ownership society? You know, and he keeps trying to sell that, and it makes so much sense. If you're a guy sitting somewhere who hasn't really owned a car, though, I mean, you know, do we really need this kind of guy trying to own his future?
It may make sense, but, you know, it's so confusing that no one really can tell you exactly what it is. As far as I'm concerned, they should just leave everything alone. I'm fine with the way it is right now. You know, I know I'm not going to get much when I retire, but I was already planning for a poor retirement anyway. So,
well, I mean, but that's the problem. I remember being in like the 9th grade, and my business teacher broke out a chart and showed us 2 little stick people that were supporting 1 little stick person on Social Security. But he said that's the way it used to be, and or it's growing now. It's like. It's just ridiculous, man. How much do you think that you should be getting on Social Security, Lamar? You got the chart from Social Security.
I got a statement not too long ago, so I don't remember exactly how much it was, but I know as far as the state of California is concerned, the proposal that our illustrious governor was proposing ran afoul of police and fire people because he wanted to get rid of the death benefits. And that's why he pulled it back, because they were, you know, upset about that. And they had a survey, one of our union people did a survey, and they said that it would take at least even if they went to the private funding, it would take about 6-7 years before it would all get worked out and kicked in anyway. You know, it's not an instant thing where it's going to happen tomorrow, you know, or in a couple of months once they sign it. You know, it's still going to take some time to implement it and get all the kinks out, you know.
Well, I mean, they keep saying they want to tie the Social Security into the stock market.
Right.
You know.
Well, that's actually as far as, the individual. They're talking about the whole ownership society, I believe, is almost in a way guilting people, to make them think that any money that they get from the government, even though it's money that we had put in ourselves, they make us feel guilty for taking it. You know, it's like, whoa, why should you be getting this money? Ownership, ownership. And the bottom line is, if that's the case, there's going to be just a handful of people that will one day own society. that is really the goal. Ownership society owned by 3 or 4 CEOs.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really scary. Because Social Security has helped for so long.
It's supposed to be insurance. I heard something strange the other day. Well, first, I heard a guy who seemed to be complaining that General Motors was having financial problems because they have more people who are collecting pensions than they do employees. And I said, well, maybe that's the case, but I mean, didn't they use these people to create Model A's and Model T's, you know? So what are you complaining about? Then, a couple of days later, Rush Limbaugh came straight out and said that these people are on welfare.
Right.
This is welfare. Social Security is welfare. The pensions are welfare.
Yeah.
General Motors is paying health plans, and you know, and I'm thinking, this is all right for you to be thinking that it's welfare because you got millions of dollars in the bank.
Exactly.
You know, but what am I going to do?
Exactly.
I'm going to kick his ass and take his money. That's what's going to end up happening.
Of course, you know, we forget he can call it welfare if he wants, but then we forget about the so-called corporate welfare that exists all around.
Exactly.
So, for instance, I believe Rush Limbaugh works, I believe his show is syndicated by Clear Channel.
He's Clear Channel.
I believe it's Clear Channel. Well, Clear Channel, I mean, no, I don't know for sure, but Clear Channel definitely takes advantage. There's certain breaks that it gets from the government that it takes advantage of. So even if it doesn't get direct dollars, from the government, there are still policies that Clear Channel is able to take advantage of that you or I just can't because we're little people. Yes, they may be a large business that employ a lot of people, but they definitely are taking advantage of certain government policies, certain government paybacks in order to keep their company large and prosperous.
Well, so what are they trying to do, though, by calling it welfare and talking about ownership? Like you said, they're trying to guilt people, make people feel like, I shouldn't be collecting welfare.
Yes.
But what are you going to do, man, if you're 70, 80 years old? You were telling me about your uncle. He's 75 and he's still vital, but that's not always the case, man.
And you know, another thing too, when you said that, you know, by calling it welfare or calling it ownership society, all these things are what we in the communication educators talk about. It's framing. It's all about how you frame an issue. If you frame an issue one way, I'm just trying. Gosh, I wish I could remember where I was getting. Something I just heard yesterday. But if you frame, we'll just say, if anything, you frame an issue one way, you can have people think about it a certain way, and it actually can end up backfiring on you in a negative thing. So then you sometimes go back to the table, and then you rename it something else. So instead of saying, that's why they came up with the term private ownership society, because initially they were calling it just privatizing it.
Right.
And when it was privatizing, that didn't sit well with a lot of people. So then they went back to the drawing board and said, okay, what's a better moniker that we can give to it? Some kind of euphemism that will make people think this is mine. So if you use the term ownership, suddenly now, oh wow, yeah, it's something I own. Yes, it's mine. Like my house, I own my house. Well, your house, your house is privately owned too. You know, private real estate, but but you own it. So so they're trying to use that kind of psychology on people to make them think you're getting something.
Right.
You're getting. You don't have anything.
I heard the president the other day, and he was saying that over time, the stock market always goes up, which is fine and it's true as far as we know.
Right.
You know, but there have been times when the stock market was down.
Just
way down.
Just as much as 5 or 4 years ago, as well as the correction that happened in the late 80s. And this is an interesting point, I think, because the framing of the language, which I think is a Karl Rovian term, Karl Rove, our current Machiavelli, current Machiavelli. Same thing with the death tax, where it was the estate tax, where people think of large wealth, but when they called it the death tax, how dare you tax the dead? But it was the same thing. So it is
nobody has
about framing.
But everybody
it's all about framing.
has dead.
But people also forget, as long as I can remember, I've always been told that, you know, you can invest in the stock market. It's a somewhat of a risk. However, a lower risk is to invest in the government. T-bills, bonds, Social Security in an aspect is an investment in the government. And that's always balanced since the big dark days of the 20s, right, 29, when the whole system collapsed. This was the government and the money that's poured into government. This is government jobs, everything. Money in government has always balanced Wall Street. So when Wall Street has a correction, there's still the dollar. There is still government spending. Right now, we have a president who is the figurehead of our government telling people to not invest in your government.
Exactly.
Do not invest in your government because they're going to throw your money away.
Exactly.
And he's actually, as the head of our government, is telling people not to spend money in it. And I think that's counterproductive. And no one has really called him out on that. And I think he should be.
So all that government cheese I was going to invest in, I guess, is really looking forward to that.
He's actually out there telling you, do not invest. He's not selling trade. When was the last time you saw the commercial for savings bond?
Right,
The
U.S. bonds,
savings bond.
T-bills, things like that have always been a great balance for our system. Face it, capitalism by itself will fall, will have problems. With a little bit of socialism, with a little bit of government spending, it's a great balance. And they're trying to get people to forget about that by using terms like ownership society, guilting people into being responsible. But face it, do you want your 90-year-old grandmother or mother having to pick up that phone when some shark is on there telling her to change her investment to this or that, or she gets a little slip in the paper saying that if you don't pay your bill by a certain time, we double the interest. All these things that credit card companies have been doing for years, we are now going to be subjecting our senior citizens, and in a lot of cases our senile senior citizens, forcing them to have to swim with these sharks, these financial sharks.
Well, like I said, I know some people who've never owned a new car, you know, and it's a head space, and not that the new car is necessarily so important, but it's just the responsibility. I know people who keep making the same stupid mistakes, man, getting evicted. I know people who've been evicted from every place that I've ever known them to stay, man. You know, and this is a relative, and I can't talk to him. You know, but I mean,
Hopefully he's not watching.
I don't care because he ain't got a television anyway.
Now I will say, although I'm not for this Social Security, this new plan, but I will say but many of us do work on jobs where we do have 401ks, and that is how they've tried to sell it to many people in the middle class. The only thing, though, one of the biggest things that offended me, though, in the initial salesmanship of the Social Security plan was, as a black young man, is how he tried to sell it to black people by saying, oh, well, you know, since black men have shorter life expectancies, well, you know, you should really want this.
Exactly.
The only thing that he forgot to mention, though, is that, yes, the reason why there's a disparity in life expectancy between blacks and whites is, yes, when you add in infants, but, you know, if you make it to 30, though, we're going to live about the same amount of years.
Exactly.
Maybe he'll make it 6 more months. Oh, wow, 6 whole more months than me.
He smokes, man.
Okay, well, see, I already have a meeting.
I'm not going to make it.
See, I won.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die.
We're back with Richard Lawrence, Lamar Webster, and Scott Holmes here on Charles Jackson TV. We've been talking about Social Security, but let the president sell that. Let's talk. Here, let me put my glasses on. Oh, I'll tell you what else is big. I never know when the show is going to air, so whether it's going to still be big at the time. Paul Abdul, what's this boy? What's his name?
Corey Clark, I think it is.
Man,
Corey Clark.
what's wrong with these youngsters? It might be something gay about hip-hop, man, because these young hip-hop boys are just doing some weird stuff. If Paul Abdul was trying to do me,
Right.
the last
there, right?
man, I'd be trying to get her pregnant. I wouldn't be trying to make her lose her job. Man, I don't know what's wrong with these
Well,
youngsters,
they
man.
were saying that the timing of this revelation that he made is suspect because this happened almost 2 years ago, and he's got an ebook that's out that came out the night, a few minutes after the show aired on prime time.
What a coincidence.
The ebook was up and running online, and then he's got a new CD that he's going to release soon. So, you know, I guess he was traumatized for 2 years, and now he's okay. So he decided to bring it out.
It's two things I don't like to hear men say. One, that I've been traumatized, and two, that I'm frustrated. Because, see, when I get frustrated, I just kill something, man. You know what I mean? That's how a man is supposed to deal with frustration. You know, it don't have to be a person. You can kill an animal or something. You know, a bear. A bear, not a small animal. Whatever.
Well,
All right.
surprisingly, the ratings on the show got higher Wednesday.
What, on American Idol?
So
25
they're
million.
saying even though this little drama is going on, and Paula's contract, I believe, is up for renewal next year, but you know, she may make it. She may make skate through, and the show may even get higher ratings.
Well, remember, it's the rule. You know the rule, especially in the entertainment industry, is that all publicity is good publicity.
Right.
Right.
So even if this is a quote unquote negative, there's really, it's not going to hurt the show. Plus, the scandal is really not much of a scandal.
Exactly. It's not criminal.
Right.
It's not a
Right, 'cause I
criminal
mean,
scandal.
Not only is it not
We've
criminal,
had presidential sex scandals,
Right.
man.
Right.
but not only is it not criminal, it had no effect on the outcome of the show.
Right, he
If
still
it had an effect
lost.
on the outcome of the show, maybe people might have lost some confidence in it. That, oh wow, you know, that this is how person X got to where they are. But the guy was kicked off because they said he left something out of his background.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Paula was
Sleeping with
doing
Paula.
his hair.
Well, yes, but,
She
you
was
know, I guess there was some
choosing his
criminal.
songs. She was buying him clothes.
But she still couldn't force us to.
And he still couldn't win.
Yeah, and she still couldn't make us type in his name on our AT&T cellular phone.
Exactly.
Right.
And he was all relaxed and stuff because she was hooking him up. All right. Enough about that. What about the runaway bride? See, we just talking about silly stuff now because that Social Security thing was so heavy.
But see, that's another example of something that just gets so blown out of proportion. And then, you know what happens when when a prank is pulled on someone, or someone feels a prank is pulled on them? They get mad. They get mad. And that's the way the community, who got together and did a beautiful thing, they all went searching. I mean, they found her cut off hair. They were that good at looking for evidence. And then when it turned out that it was cold feet, that, you know, they got mad.
She said it wasn't cold feet.
Whatever. She's saying what her lawyers are telling her to say as she writes her note.
Well,
She allegedly purchased a ticket to Vegas
Yeah.
a week prior.
a week prior.
So it wasn't like she just all of a sudden came out with cold feet.
Exactly.
And she still went to Vegas before she went to New Mexico.
I believe the wedding registry, I believe they've received over 10,000 in gifts.
Is that right?
Right.
Well, I checked. 47 people got killed in Iraq while we was tripping with that.
Right.
You know, so
That's the other thing. It's, the administration
weapons of
loves to see
mass
stuff like this.
distraction.
But there was progress. She didn't blame black people for her disappearance.
Exactly.
It was well. That's showing just how important the Hispanic community is getting in America.
That's right.
That it's now the
We blame them
go-to
for our crime.
Yeah, the go-to race to blame.
Now,
you
see,
know.
now we were talking the other day about the husband who's saying that they're like 30-year-old virgins, right?
That's another thing.
See, I'm thinking maybe that's why she got cold feet. She might have some explaining to do.
Yeah, I don't know, but see, I don't think that he would have been able to tell. I mean, if it's their wedding night, you know he's schnockered. And if he's a virgin himself, what's he gonna know? How's he gonna know? You know?
That's true. Maybe he really don't know what tight stuff is supposed to feel
It seemed
like.
like a pretty big affair, though. There's
was.
supposedly 600 guests.
Right.
14
I don't even know
brides,
600
bridesmaids,
people.
It was the wedding of the
14
year
grooms,
for that area
yeah.
of
I'd sent in an
Georgia.
RSVP. I couldn't make it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, yeah, 600 guests. You'd think that I would have been invited, man. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of people. What's happening with the Army recruiters? Just to change the subject, have you been hearing about?
Yeah.
You know, this one kid, and I guess his life is probably over, and he just doesn't know it yet. He went out and told his recruiters that he had a problem with marijuana.
Right.
And so the recruiters took him to the drugstore to get some stuff to take to clean him up.
Right.
You know, said he wasn't a college graduate, a high school graduate. So they sent him to the internet where he went to some place, paid him $200, and they sent him
Like a GED or something.
sent him a diploma from some Southern Baptist high school or something.
Yeah.
And so they were talking to the colonel, and the colonel said what they always say, it was an anomaly. You know?
Right.
Just it's always an anomaly. When you beat Rodney King's butt in front of the camera, the anomaly was that the camera was there.
Exactly.
but of course they said it was, we never really beat people up.
Yeah, well, they're desperate. They really are desperate. They're not meeting their quotas, and these recruiters, which I don't. You have a military background. Who else had a military background here?
Just you.
When I was
My
in the
military
Marine
background
Corps.
was that I did not serve.
Yeah, well,
Like Rush Limbaugh.
I was a U.S. Marine. I've served my country, so that's why I feel I can be
God bless you, Scott.
vocal liberal. I've served my country, but in the Marine Corps, Marine recruiters, the school is nicknamed Liar School. The school that when the recruiting school that they go to learn the ins and outs of how to be a recruiter is nicknamed Liar School.
But usually aren't the lies, though, to try and get you to join, so they'll show you all these things saying, yes,
Right.
you could be working on helicopters when actually all you're doing is mopping the floors at the hangar.
Well, they're lying to everybody. They're lying to their superiors because they want to get their numbers. But I'm just saying that's the environment that they're in the first place. Is they manipulate the truth.
Did you remember on Michael Moore's documentary that came out year before last? The recruiters there were going like to certain malls, in certain neighborhoods, because they knew that the lies wouldn't go in other areas, so they went to these poor, depressed areas to try to get these guys to come in. You know?
Oh yeah, and they were. I remember. Didn't they tell this guy that he was going to do be a DJ or something in the military? I mean, wasn't it isn't that what they were selling the one kid?
I guess he'd probably spend something,
Yeah, they were spending something.
I don't know, man. Actually, see, I was distressed when during the campaign the president said that he would not institute a draft.
Right.
Because I said, well, I'm not big enough fool to believe that if it gets nasty, we might need a draft. And I don't want him to box himself in to a position where he can't draft because he meant what he said and does what he means or whatever that.
Well, I believe the president personally, because remember, as long as Jenna and Barbara are of draft age, there will be no draft. Since women will have to go, there will be women drafted. That's just the way it's going to be if there is a draft instituted. So as long as his daughters are of draft age, then anyone with a child in their early 20s,
I got a problem with women being in the draft anyway because, well, you see what's happening over there, man, and it's going to keep happening. You just can't have females out there on the battlefield. You've seen pictures of them; they're out there dancing in their bras.
Well, I don't think that's quite fair. I mean, Israel has done very well with that. I think it can be done.
Well, I think they're dancing in their bras in Israel too. I mean, if they're not, it's not because it's just because maybe they're better raised. They've got a theology thing happening in Israel that perhaps their society is just raising better people than what ours is.
Also, I would say it's probably because it's been ingrained. I mean, you know that when you are a 6-year-old little girl that you will be going to the military when you're, I don't know exactly what age is it, 18, I guess. After high school, you have this mandatory military service that you do have to do.
Are they doing combat, though?
In Israel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess everybody's in combat.
Yeah, everyone is there, too.
We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Imagine what it feels like to be a hero every day. You can make a difference in the Coast Guard.
All right, we're back. Now, Scott, you had another point.
Well, I think one of the main reasons why conservatives, including the neocons, are not wanting to institute the draft is because it makes everyone in the country concerned with military operations when more people are involved. If this country had a 2-year service, whether it's in the military, Peace Corps, at home, at-risk programs, things like that, somehow helping the nation, I think it would be healthy. And I differ from a lot of liberals on this point. But if the whole nation was involved, if there was some kind of draft, then they wouldn't be able to get away with some of the things that they get away with military use. More of the country is at stake. More children, more people. So more influential people would think twice.
Well, it's about time for us to wrap this up. I do have some quick questions I want to ask everybody.
Oh.
Michael Jackson, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty. Do you think he's going to be found guilty?
I don't think he's going to be found guilty.
I should have prefaced my question. Michael Jackson.
You leave Michael alone. He's holy. Not guilty.
Not guilty, or
Not
will he
guilty.
not be found guilty?
All of the above.
All of the above.
I think, dare I say, it's not a black and white issue. I think there's a lot of things there because of his background and the eccentricity of wealth. All these things are factors. And is he guilty of some of the charges? Possibly. Would I want my kids to hang out with him? No. That would be never
And there are
land.
people right now who would let their kids go on a field trip to the Himalayan mountains with Michael Jackson. Right now. As much trouble as this boy. I don't know why if I was him, I would never allow myself to be alone with my own children.
I just hope after all of this he's learned his lesson. I mean, just
No, he didn't learn it in
keep the boys-
93.
I know, but you know what really sucks is he had to pay the 20 plus million in 93, and he still gets a trial anyway. You know, he should have done this 10 years ago. He had saved himself a few dollars.
Lamar Webster, Richard Lawrence, Scott Holmes, thank you for coming. We're going to be out of here.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.